G'day, it's Cream here on Does It Matter? Today I want to talk about what it's like to be you, what it's like to be me, what it's like to be anything, what it's like to experience anything. It's a super important question because I think it's the essential presage to any successful conversation, negotiation, even to competition with an adversary, a competitor. It's super important because understanding who's in front of you, who you're talking to, where they came from, why they believe what they believe, what it's like to be them, it's desperately necessary if you want to have a hope of either cooperating with them, converging with them, mating with them, forming friendships or alliances with them, or competing with them, outmaneuvering them. You need to understand them. It's super important. It's a core principle in Sun Tzu's Art of War. It's in Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. It's a fundamental feature of tactical strategy, von Clausewitz's book on war. It's also fundamental to sound therapeutic practice when you're in couples therapy or in personal therapy, and you're learning how to re-engage with people more successfully. It's what is it like to be that person? What is it like to be yourself when you're looking at your own script, when you're looking at your own upbringing, your own origins? Kind of treat yourself like a comic book hero. What's your origin story? Where did you come from? What created you? What made you the person you are? Often we fail to do that, and then if you can't do that with yourself, you're not going to be able to do it with others. So I'd say the first starting point is, what is it like to be you? What is it like to have the things that you have, to believe the things that you believe, to feel the things that you feel? What is it like? And you start to track back through time, exploring that, and you will start to see mechanics, methodologies, and scripts running that you had no idea about, assumptions that you made, beliefs that you formed that you didn't know you'd formed. What is it like to experience life as you? It's the ladder to a very, very deep rabbit hole, but one well worth going down, because you have no possibility of actually truly understanding or engaging someone else if you can't start that process and engage that process deeply within yourself. The tools that we use to understand others are found within ourselves, developing our own internal skills, tools, exploring our own internal landscapes. What is it like to be then someone else? What is it like to be my partner? What is it like to experience life the way she experiences it, or one of my work colleagues, or a friend who's in a unique situation? How did that happen? Well, what is it like to be them to begin with? Let's start not so much with the going straight to the how and the what's, but let's first ask, what is it like to be them? What is their experience? And once you get that experience and you've created a little seed of some kind of objective understanding of them, then you can start to work your way back through the knowledge that you have of their lives, of their experiences. When you're trying to understand people who are framing arguments that you don't particularly like, pardon me, a little bit dry in the throat, then the most useful way and successful way of being able to do that is to imagine what it's like to be living in a Midwest town in Ohio, or a coal town in Mount Isa in Queensland. What is it like? What is it like when that greenie bus rocked up, saying completely truthful, accurate things? What was it like for the people there? And it might give you an impression of why people respectively in Ohio voted for Trump and people here voted for ScoMo, or Slow-Mo as I call them, Scummo, whichever one you want to choose. They voted for them for a variety of reasons, but one of the triggering points was that they had well-meaning, well-informed people driving into town in their green buses, telling them how to live and telling them that they had to give up something without giving them any real options as to how they might replace what they were supposed to be giving up for the good of all. And enough people have been lost by the wayside with globalization that those people went, no, bugger you, I'm going to vote with the guy who says I can keep my job. I'm going to vote with the guy who makes the biggest promises, the most populist presentation wins. That is a classic example of people trying to convince other people and not first saying, what is it like to be them? What is it like to live where they live? What is it like to be in a mining town or a coal town or a fossil fuel town? What is it like to consider the end of that world and hear that all over the media constantly, that it's the end of the world? What is it like for those people? If you don't ask those questions, you cannot possibly engage those people successfully. You can't present a truthful, accurate policy that will allow those people to transition to new roles and new ways of living. And that's always a challenge. People don't like change. People don't want to change. They're happy with the way things are often, or at least they're more afraid of the way things could be than the way things are. People are often content in their misery as much as their happiness. And it takes a lot to shift that. Asking what is it like to be them is a core feature of ever convincing them to feel, think, or try anything else outside of what they already experience and are familiar with. And again, you need to do that with yourself first. I suspect a lot of people on the left of politics, which is where I'm at, need to do that, need to be looking again at our own internal compasses and our own internal drivers and wondering, and have a re-examination of the scripts that run us. What is it like to be anything? And then apply that broadly, both internally and out into the world. Before you start making grand, logical, well-supported arguments, you have to be able to understand where the other person is coming from, because telling someone that they should change for the good of the community, for the good of their children and their grandchildren, without giving them any options, without making the necessary promises to look after them and to give them better, at least as good if not better options for them and their children's future, you are talking pie in the sky, metaphorical, theoretical constructs to people who are holding on to real physical advance right now. And if you want them to change, you have to present in such a way that they can believe that you're offering them something equally or more real and more long-lasting and sustainable. And clearly, the progressive side of politics in many parts of the world, and certainly in Australia, has failed to convey that to enough of the constituency who are involved in the heavy old fossil fuel industries and power industries and so on, and are fearful of the cost of it. I mean, we also have massive reforms to engage in agriculture as well, where we continue to try to grow crops on one of the most arid, hostile continents on the planet, when indoor farming and aerial farming are vastly superior for most crops. Again, what is it like to be those farmers? What is it like to experience what they experience? And then coming from that, coming from their actual experiences, coming from a position where you've walked in their shoes, you can then start to suggest and make real changes in the way that they think by offering them what they actually need. Not coming in with what you think they need, not coming in with what you think is good for them only, but also coming from a perspective where you clearly have made you've gone to enormous lengths to understand them. People appreciate that. It's real communication. People are more trusting of information that comes from someone who's clearly empathizing and liaising with them, rather than someone who's simply trying to convince them to get their money, get their vote, get their consent, get them into bed, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. People are far more likely to consent to all of those things if they feel that you have their interests, best interests at heart, and you're competent. Okay? And when you don't come from a perspective of asking what it's like to be them, what it's like to be in their circumstances, then they're going to distrust both your competency and your intent. So the next time you're in an argument with anyone about anything, try to practice that. What is it like to be them? Now, it's not always possible, and some people are dogmatic and ideologically fanatical, and some people are just there for the argument, and that's all. And by all means, have a great debate with them if that's all they want and you enjoy it as well. There's nothing wrong with a robust debate. Okay, as long as it's civil, as long as there's no malice involved, it's perfectly okay. But if you're wanting to actually get some change going, you're trying to advance your relationship, or you're trying to advance the conversation in a positive direction, and you're trying to understand each other, then you absolutely have to come from that position where you're first trying to understand yourself and then you're trying to understand them. Come from a position of empathy and imagination, and then use logic to deduce what the hell's going on. So try that out and let me know how you go. Cheers. And thanks for that from me at Does It Matter.